Have you ever tried switching from one passion to another? Say, photography to watercolor illustration. Now, that is a path that is certainly less traveled. But for our guest artist, Yola Sopek, this is by far the best decision she's ever made. In this episode, Yola shared about finding your passion and having the courage to try different things, adapting a learning mindset, the secret to managing social media while staying true to your cause, and teaching what you know and finding the confidence to do so. If you want to be part of the conversation, then send in your questions and topics you want us to cover to hello@etcherlab.com. Hey, this is Jessie from Etcher. We believe in your power to create, so we invited artists from all around the globe to inspire you to keep on creating. Join us in this journey and let's celebrate creativity. This is Make More Art, the podcast.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is very exciting. Well, my art journey started probably with photography. So I was studying photography at university. I have a photography degree. And I was studying photography for about 6 years, actually, in total, because it was like a break in between. But then at the end of the course, funny enough, as it happens to people, I realized that I don't really want to do photography for a living. I don't think I could conceptualize how I could actually make money with photography, because I was very much into taking photographs for myself, but working with a concept or like a commission, I was really struggling with photography in that sense. So I think, and I wasn't even looking for an outlet at that point. I just randomly picked up watercolors, but it wasn't because I was looking for it. I think I was just a bit bored, maybe, So I just picked a set of watercolors and I painted something, and it was like a very thick coat of paint. I basically used watercolors like acrylic paint or something else, because I didn't have a point of reference.
Right.
I knew absolutely nothing about watercolors, nothing whatsoever. So I was just painting like, really thick paints, like coat of paint. And I was like, okay, well, fine. I don't know what it is. But for some reason, I went onto Instagram and then I just typed in watercolor just to see what people make, what kind of pictures you can paint with watercolors. And I realized it was a transparent medium because it was quite light. And I really liked how it looked. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? So then I went onto YouTube, just like a very quick tutorial of like, oh, you have to use more water than paint. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, okay, well, that's interesting because I've never touched watercolors in my life. So I have a lot to learn here. Mm-hmm. And literally just like from one day to another, I was hooked. I was completely obsessed. So I would paint in the morning before I went to uni. Then I'd come back in the evening, I would paint as well. But the funny thing about it was that I didn't feel the pressure of having to like get really good immediately, because normally I'm quite easy to get frustrated with things. So I'm like, I'm quite quick to, criticize myself and be like, oh, I should be better at this already. But for some reason, I don't know what it is. It's crazy. But like, I just didn't feel that pressure of watercolors. So I was very happy going through all the stages of being, like completely clueless to then move on to being a little bit more clued up, I guess. Okay. And yeah, that wasn't a problem. So I think at that point I realized, okay, well, this is interesting because maybe this is the medium that I actually really could work with, because if it doesn't frustrate me immediately, that means there's like some room to play, and I would have patience with myself. So yeah, I mean, like I do get this question a lot from people, like, obviously we are so busy, and like if you have a day job, obviously you want an outlet. But at the same time, you want to find some time for art, but also, what if you have children? What if you have like a really demanding job? It might just be impossible to find time, So I would think that the best thing you can do is just to try to find a medium which doesn't frustrate you. Because if you find something that is just too difficult for you, because it could be different things to different people. Right. If you find that this medium just annoys you more than it gives you pleasure, then that's probably not the one. So, I mean, yeah, I would say just try different things. If you don't have your favorite medium yet, try a few different types of, paints or pencils or crayons or whatever that might be, or digital artwork as well. And then see how you respond to it. Because if you feel prompted to do even like 10 minutes a day, then maybe that's the one that you can develop with,
Right. Yeah.
That's what I would think.
Thank you, Yola. It's interesting to learn that you started with photography. I have always admired people who are into photography. It's just when they take photos, they have like a it feels as if they have a different set of eyes because they have a way of capturing something that
Yeah.
people would normally say as like a mundane scene. So when you started watercolor, you were still studying, you said, in uni.
Yes.
But I love when you pointed out that you didn't feel the pressure
Yeah.
to be really good at it when you started. And I think that's key.
Yeah.
And for anyone who's starting out there. And also when you said that it should be something that you enjoy doing rather than something that, it feels like it's a burden to even do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that could be quite an obvious statement because most people will tell you that you have to enjoy it. But
Right.
obviously it's not that easy. I think what I was trying to say is that sometimes you don't know which art, like which medium is going to give you that feeling. Because you might think, oh, yeah, watercolors look really nice and I would like to paint in them. But then for some people, they will be frustrating. So maybe for you as an individual, perhaps you would be better off working in oil paints or acrylics or whatever. But that's something you almost have to like stumble upon, I think, if you don't have prior experience.
Yeah.
Because you just don't really know how you might respond to this medium. And that's what I found interesting about it as well. It was kind of like a epiphany. I was like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because you said that, just out of boredom, I tried watercolor, and the way that you approach it was like using an acrylic paint. And then suddenly upon going to YouTube and you realize that it's a transparent medium, then you started to learn how to use and to work with that medium. So those are really good, golden nuggets. I would say normally it's for the latter part of the interview, but you've already highlighted some really good points and trinkets of wisdom. I saw that line from one of your posts on Instagram that you have to enjoy. And when you say enjoy, like what you said, you have to try out different things and see what will work with you in terms of trying out different medium. So I'm interested. So how long have you been painting then, or using watercolor?
I keep forgetting. I really do keep forgetting. I keep remembering like when it was. I think it was about 4 years ago. Well, 4.5.
Okay.
It was like March 2017, I think.
Wow.
Roughly.
And you've grown so much as an artist. I've seen in one of your posts that your works, one of your paintings, was printed on a chocolate bar. If I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I did see that. I was like, oh wow, that would be amazing. I love chocolates, but to see my work printed on the wrapper, that level up, really amazing.
Yeah, that was really, really amazing. It was actually it's a local chocolate maker. She's a wonderful French lady who opened a patisserie kind of chocolate shop in a town nearby. And I think she was looking for local artists specifically to be featured on her chocolate bars. So every bar is got like a different artwork on it, depending on who the artist is. And also the artist was able to choose the flavors that she would make. So when she said that to me, I was like, this is not just about the artwork. It's actually like I get to choose what flavor it is, which I thought was like a wild, cool concept.
It is.
So it's very unusual as well, but that was the beauty of working with someone who's because I'm pretty sure she works on her own as well. So it's kind of like a small business approach as well. And so she has all the creative freedom to choose whoever she wants to work with. And now she's expanded, so she has more artists on the board as well. And and the chocolate was delicious. So I love it. Really
That's the bonus part. In your journey as an artist, and I love when I say journey because it is indeed a journey. And I would like to hear more about how you've grown as an artist. So starting from 2017, what has changed from Yola in 2017, starting out with watercolor, to Yola right now in 2021 and the pandemic as an artist?
Oh, everything has changed, to be honest. I haven't done much art before that. Photography, I feel like I consider photography kind of like a different category of art. It's definitely creative, and it still helps me like every day because obviously you have to take photographs as well. So it definitely helps me a lot. But I consider that to be a little bit different to like manual work in terms of like illustration with your hand. I just think of them as separate things. So everything has changed. Before then, I haven't done any like drawing. I would doodle sometimes, but never really I never thought about anything like that. So for me to go from like not doing anything in terms of drawing or painting to like basically paint every day, which if I'm honest, actually, I haven't stopped painting since like I started. Like obviously some days
Wow.
they don't have the time, but you know, it's like
Right.
pretty much it's consistent, right? I didn't have a
Mhm.
break of like a few months even. It was always like almost every day. So that changed because that was like a completely new thing in my life, which just made me so happy and curious about like the future and like the potential of what I could do with illustration. Um, and it gave me much more, I suppose, like a feeling of like stability in myself because I found something that was different in my surroundings as well. Like no one paints, or like I don't really have artist friends. I think I'm
Oh,
the only one
okay.
who does illustration.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, then you get to know more people in your way,
Right.
you know,
Within
and
the art community, true.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it kind of made me feel like I have something for myself that I also like learned from scratch because
Yeah.
again, I had to learn everything from scratch. So
Mhm.
it just, I guess it built my confidence in that sense and also gave me the sense of that, you know, of this possibility of like, well, I can just pick something up and maybe, I mean, I'm not saying with everything it would be like this, but in this instance, it's something that I can pursue and it will, and I will be able to do all sorts of other things like
Yeah.
teach and, you know,
Sure.
so yeah, and right now as well, like I'm renting an office studio right now, which is for me is a huge step because I felt like that was like almost like putting a dot on the
Exactly.
sentence of like I do this, you know, this is
Yes.
what I do. It
Yeah.
makes it much more complete in some sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, it changed completely. I mean, I don't think I know what I would be doing otherwise. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what I would be doing. I guess I would have to find a job in like something else completely different. So
Right. So I just have to ask. Thanks, Yola, for sharing that. And I love hearing you talk about your journey and what has changed from 2017 to now because it shows in the way that you talk about it. That feeling. It's you can really sense the joy. So I just have to ask: is painting, doing illustrations your full time, or is it something that you do as a side hustle?
it's full time now.
Time.
It kind
Wow.
of very gradually it became so. But I mean, yeah, it's like it's a strange process. I guess like for some people it's a very clear cut moment when they become full
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
For me, I think it was quite gradual because I started when I was at uni. When I
Yeah.
was at uni, I had a part-time job, and then when I finished uni, I still had the job. So I would like do a bit of commissions, like very
Uh-huh.
minimal, and then I
Yeah.
would still have the job, and then I would do other things on the side, you know. So it was always like because I've never had like a full-time job in an office, you know, doing some work. Like
Right.
it was
Yeah.
never my life. So
Mhm.
for me, it was always like a step-by-step kind of transition. But right now it's full-time. So I
Okay.
just combine teaching with commissions
Okay.
and some other bits.
All right.
Yeah.
Make More Art the podcast is made possible by listeners like you. So we would like to give a shout out to Barbara Milbrandt. She said, fascinating podcast and beautiful art. Thank you. Make sure you don't miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. I want to touch on first the part when you said confidence. And I think that's something that a lot of someone who wants to start doing or making art kind of struggle with. For some weird reason, people, when you're talking about art, you have to be artistic or an artist to be able to create something.
Mm.
Have you ever had that thought when you were starting out? I know that when you said when you first encountered watercolor, you approach it like an acrylic, but eventually you started to learn to embrace its transparency. But have you ever had any
Yeah.
sort of like, is this really something that I would want to do, or maybe I should switch medium? And this is for anyone who would want to start as a beginner who's a little bit either having a hard time figuring out watercolor or any other kind of medium out there.
Well, in my particular case, I never had any doubts about watercolor.
Mhm.
So I guess I was lucky in that way because I just
Okay.
fell in love, like, you know, head over heels with the medium somehow for some reason. I still can't quite explain why.
Mm.
And so I never really doubted it. I did dabble in gouache painting, and I think
Oh.
I have a set of acrylics, but I just never really, I don't know. I think I don't like the opacity of other media. I really like the transparency of watercolor. So for me, it's
Mhm.
always like never ending well that I can keep digging into, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
this watercolor, you can just learn and learn and learn and get
It's
new
true.
techniques in. And there's just so much to unpack, really.
Yeah.
So for me, it was never the case. But I know that other people have definitely struggled with the medium. And so my suggestion is just to try something else. I mean, it
Mm.
could be mixed media work that you do. You can combine watercolor with ink and gouache, maybe if you would like to. Or maybe for you, it's just not conducive to be working on a desk with watercolors, because that's usually where people paint. I mean, you can paint outside as well, but maybe you prefer an easel painting with oils or even acrylic as well. So maybe changing the format or maybe working digitally. Some people love digital drawing, on an iPad or some other device. And so there's just so many different things that can ring true to you. And I feel like you just have to find the one. I mean, I'm kind of repeating myself, but just find the one that really makes you feel at peace almost. Like instead of feeling frustrated with it, you might feel frustrated at times. Of course you do, because everyone does. But, most of the time, I'm talking like majority of the time, you won't feel frustrated with it. You will still be curious about it. So I just know that for me, like, I think if I was working with acrylic, I probably wouldn't find the same joy with it. It might change one day.
Yeah.
You never know.
Never know. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the confidence just comes from this sense of being like curious enough and also like happy enough to make mistakes as well, because obviously
and happy,
learning entails making a lot of mistakes, and you will never get like a perfect picture from the first, right off the bat. So having this sense of peace about it, because you know that you can't get better, but you don't necessarily get better right now immediately. So I think it probably comes from that, this confidence, from being okay with the process of learning.
Love it. Confidence coming, being okay with the process of learning. Very well said, Yola.
That's what it comes down.
I think one other thing that, because I know you have a very engaged community of followers who really go to you for tutorials and with a different and variety of subjects that you paint. One other thing is I think you really inspire them to make art or approach art from that perspective, that what you said, that you have to, be okay that it's a process. It's not something that you accomplish overnight. This is something that interesting, and I brought this up offline earlier, was that you call them baby cakes. So I'm interested how that came about, because it's so cute, and for someone who's like following you, it's like so endearing. I feel like you're my friend, even though you're miles away. So
I love that question. No one's ever like asked me about that, which is,
I was like, when I saw that, I have to ask Yola where baby cakes came from.
I love that you're asking me this. I really appreciate that. You know what? I mean, the answer might be quite boring. Unfortunately, there is not much reason for it. I just really like the word. It's a very cute word, as you said. And I think I was like, probably with my friend, we were just thinking about like the 90s or whatever. And like a baby cake was like a word that people would use. I think there's like a sugar cake.
Yeah.
I don't actually know. I don't know how I came up with it, but then I just said it on Instagram and I just stuck with it. I just think I like to be a bit silly online, it's just, exactly. Because, like daily life is just like, everyone's like got their problems, whatever. Like on Instagram, I just want to be a bit like funny and cute, like whatever, why not?
That's what I love about your feed. It's funny, it's cute, it's very approachable, I guess, in that sense, that even though
and that's very much an intention of mine, actually.
Okay, that explains it, because when I was browsing through your page and I was like, I don't feel intimidated, because and no offense, because I know there are a lot of like high profile artists out there, whether watercolor or whatnot, and sometimes it's kind of intimidating to even drop a message via DM, because you might not get an answer. But that's not the feeling that I got when I look at your social media profile, Instagram specifically. So let's talk about that a little bit, with the baby cakes and having an engaged community. And I saw this in one of I think you've had an interview about it, of growing your social media as an artist.
Yeah.
I had an interview with someone prior, and it was a dilemma that was mentioned, wherein you have being an artist an entirely different thing from being a content creator in the era of social media. So how do you keep that balance of staying true to yourself as an artist, while of course keeping keeping an engaged community online, especially through Instagram?
Yeah, that's quite tricky sometimes. I think also because you get quite like tired of being online, of course, like posting and always trying to post something that's inspirational or easy to follow as a tutorial or whatever that might be. It does get quite tiring, just because of the sheer amount, like the number of screens we're looking at every day as well. So it's like constant exposure to screens, and you're just kind of thinking, well, am I making art for myself just to progress and also like get better at it, or am I making it for people? And to be honest with you, in the last, I would say like a year or like half a year, I really relaxed about it. I decided to just kind of not care, like in terms of like my own pressure about it, because I think like, and also like I know other people on Instagram who kind of have the same approach of like, well, obviously I do this because I love it and I want to share what I love. But when you get burnt out, or when you feel like you kind of, you're losing the purpose of why you're painting in the first place, that's a sign that you should probably take a break. And so I'm very okay with not posting for a while. And then I do let people know, because there is people who would like, reach out to me quite regularly having questions. And I would just be like, I'm having a bit of a break because I literally can't cope. And like, there's either too much to do, or I don't know, I'm just not really feeling it right now. So obviously I would never take like a month break, which might happen in the future. Hasn't happened as of yet.
Okay.
So I'm talking like at least a week off, like just kind of distance yourself from it. So I definitely don't think of myself as like a content creator per se. I'm definitely much more of just an illustrator who happens to also make tutorials, because I really enjoy the process of teaching, which I guess is where my teaching comes in, because I also teach on Zoom, or I used to teach in person as well before the pandemic. So hopefully that will come back. We'll see. So I think that's why I enjoy making tutorials, because I actually really enjoy teaching, like actual teaching as well. So that kind of lends itself to posting these tutorials as well. And so, but I try to be very easy about it. Like I don't make a schedule for my Instagram. I just post like, I mean, I have a bit of a schedule, but it's not like strict. I don't have this crazy
like you have to like follow. Okay, understood.
Yeah. And I think that's because I also use like Instagram as like a tool just to kind of get to know people, promote my work, of course, but like just to connect. I don't treat it as like necessarily like a source of income per se, which might be different to people who are like models or something, who have to post.
Exactly. Thank you. Because I think that's a common, for a lot of artists who are on Instagram, that, it's either, do I want to be a content creator and schedule all of my posts? If I don't show up, what's going to happen with, with the algorithm and all? But hearing you talk about it in that sense, that, it's okay to take a pause for a while, to be off for a while.
The Instagram algorithm and the engagement, they will drop all the time. You don't really have control over it. And so sometimes the same kind of quality of a post might reach a lot of people, and then you produce something similar and it doesn't reach that many people. And you have to be okay with that, because if we're so attached to these like very elusive figures, then that would affect your confidence as an artist. But if you treat it as a tool and you're kind of okay with that being fluctuating, it's still like your predominant, like your attention is on the actual artwork and the process, rather than the social media part of it, which obviously it's annoying for everyone if you want to reach people, but it's like, don't make it the end of the world. That's the thing, because it will go up and down. That's what I think.
Lovely. Very well said. I think everyone needs to hear that, not just an artist, but anyone who's, posting online and very much particular with numbers, or vanity metrics is what they call it.
I mean, it's easy though. It's easy to go into the trap, because social media is so addictive. And of course it gives us a sense of, validation and pleasure. True. So it's very easy, but it is quite a tricky thing to navigate, because obviously our parents, our grandparents, they didn't have to deal with any concept like that. So for us, it's like a brand new, arena. And we're like, how do you even deal with that? So exactly. It's tricky.
It is. And you really have to do some sort of sanity check once in a while, what is it? Why am I posting? Is it really because I want to share, like what you're doing? The tutorials, those are helping a lot of people, or especially beginners. Or do I want to post for the sake of getting followers, expanding your network, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Let's talk about teaching. You mentioned that you did teach for it's art all throughout.
It started with watercolor and calligraphy. Actually, I do.
Oh yeah, I did see that you did calligraphy. I was supposed to ask that question. So was calligraphy before watercolor, or was it during or after watercolor?
I guess it was during.
during?
No, actually, no. I think I did start, like, I dabbled in calligraphy before that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was because of my dad, because my dad always loved, like, he loves stationery, like, notebooks and pens. He's obsessed. So when you go to his
Okay.
office, it's just like pens and papers, like, everywhere.
I would
So
love
for
to be
that
in your
reason,
dad's
that's true.
office. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm probably hoarding things because of my dad, It's like, that's just like in my gene pool.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. So I was dabbling in, like, calligraphy before that because of my dad, I think. But I
Okay.
was never serious. Like, again, never thought much about it. And then
Uh-huh.
I kind of just wanted to practice a bit more.
Mhm.
But funny enough, I don't really do it these days much because I'm just so busy with other things. But I keep thinking about it to go back to it. And I have my supplies here for calligraphy, but I just don't really do it much. So I need to go and polish my skills again. But yeah, so I started with watercolor workshops, which was funny actually, because it was probably 2018. So it might have been, well, no, 2019. So it would be like 2 years after I started. But I was walking past an art shop in town, and they had a little label that said, we're having an art workshop, and it was like an acrylic workshop or something with an artist. So I was like, oh, they do that, so maybe they would want a watercolor one. So I came in and they were like, yeah, we could run a little class. It would be like 6 people maximum. That's our capacity. And I was like, well, that's great, because I don't have any experience. So like 6 people is a lot for me at the time. So yeah, I just ran my first class, and it was, I mean, I can't remember what I did. I don't know what the topic was. It was probably just painting something, like, I don't know what. But then it just kind of gave me inspiration, because obviously I would have painted for a little bit of time then. I didn't feel necessarily super confident, but I knew roughly what I was doing. Of course, the people who came to the workshop, they didn't have any clue. And so already, this gap gives you a bit more like confidence, I suppose, to show them something. Even if you're not amazing, but still, because you know more than someone else, it actually gives you the room to, teach them something. And that really inspired me as well. I was like, okay, so I can teach. Like, what?
Okay, it's good to hear that story about teaching, because I was supposed to ask how you fell in love with teaching, and I think that story answers that, of how you started teaching watercolor.
Well, I suppose also that comes into the point of, like, I was never afraid of learning, and like, for me, it was okay to just approach the shop and be like, could I teach? Like, I don't know what gave, I mean, this is the thing, I'm still trying to understand what gave me the confidence. It's just, I think it's just the love for the medium, really, because I never had an issue with just teaching. Whereas I feel like with photography, even though I studied it for years, I don't think I would be confident teaching photography. I don't think I would know
that's interesting.
how to do that. I mean, I could teach people with, like, the settings of the camera, but like, in terms of explaining what I have in mind, I think I would really struggle. So I don't know. It's a mystery.
It's really watercolor. I think it's really watercolor.
I think it is.
It is. It is.
The one.
So right now, so 4 years, is it 4 years? If my math is right, 2017, 4 years into watercolor as your main medium. Do you plan to venture into, I know you said that it's really your, I would say, first love, watercolor, but do you plan to maybe try a different medium? Because, or let's say with subjects, is it something that I know you love learning. So is there something that you're trying to learn right now in terms of, let's say, subjects to paint, or maybe a different medium to try?
In terms of subjects, first of all, yeah, definitely with portraiture, like learning how to draw and then paint people, because I think drawing people is actually the foundation of painting people, because you have to get the anatomy right and everything. So definitely getting the proportions of, like, the human form right. That's something that I've been sort of trying to learn in my spare time, not that I had much of it, but and then landscape as well. I mean, I dabble in landscape painting with specifically in watercolor, but I find with landscape it's a very challenging theme, just because it's quite a different approach to painting, like a single subject on the piece of paper, just on in the center of your page. So that's something that is continually kind of like on my mind to get better and better at. And then also architecture drawing, like in terms of the perspective drawing as well. So there is a lot to learn in terms of topics, but in terms of other media, I mean, I do like gouache, so I want to try more, a bit more with gouache, but I would actually love to do more ceramic, like just ceramic making. I don't know what the word is.
I want to learn. Yeah, I want to learn too. Have you started doing ceramics?
I went to a workshop this summer and I made myself a painting palette. I would
Oh,
show it to you.
nice. I would
I
love to
don't.
see if you have it. Oh, wow. Oh, amazing. I
A
know a
little bit
lot of artists are
overexposed.
also dabbing into palette making using ceramics, but
Yes, I
having
think
your
that's what
own
gave me the
palette,
idea.
yeah, that's maybe that's something that's next for you,
I
Yola.
mean,
But
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I think it's just
good.
working with something that's also like a completely different manual skill, because obviously you have to kind of
You have to.
use your fingers to really go into the substance of the thing, of the
Right,
clay.
right. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't glaze it myself. That was the workshop owner who did that like
Okay.
later on, because that's probably quite, too in depth for me. Like I enjoyed making it, but glazing,
I love
not
it.
yet.
That would be amazing using your very own handmade ceramic palette, mixing
Well,
your
that's the
clay.
benefit of it, because you can envision it. Because I actually
Right.
drew it. I would draw, like I drew the lines before I made it.
Ah,
Because you can think
amazing.
like how many wells you want in it, how many little shapes and whatever,
Yeah.
So it's like you can custom make it for yourself. So yeah.
I love that you are very much into learning, Yola. And I know for a lot of people out there who are maybe trying out art for the first time, there is a learning curve, but props to you for trying out something new, right? Just like what you did with
Yeah.
the ceramics. Now, there's another question that I normally I started asking artists that I've had on the podcast, and that is a question of what is art to you?
Um, well, I was thinking about that a little bit, like obviously on many occasions.
Yeah.
But right now, I think I would say that art is like mastering a medium, or at least being on the path of mastering a medium. Not necessarily in a sense of that there is an end goal, or like the point which you will reach and you will master it. That's not what I mean. It's just the feeling of always improving and being curious to learn more, and like being on the path that will take you to like be better than you were last year, let's say. I really do think that, because I think about like that with music as well, like my favorite artists, or I don't know, whoever is an artist that I follow, if I see them grow and see that they have, kind of build up from their foundation, they might have started one point, and I see them, growing in whatever way that might be. I find that really inspiring, because it's almost like, taking your art and your life in a parallel. So like, time goes by and you grow as a person, but then your art also changes. So I think this would be my definition of art now. But
I've,
also just like
yeah,
being, patient and persevere with a certain medium. Like if you find the medium that you really enjoy, just try to persevere and go through the frustrating moments, which inevitably everyone will have at some point. But
right, yeah.
just having this willingness to sit down and like really go back to it, which
Mhm.
then which give you that progress in the end. So yeah, I think it's mastering the medium. That's what or trying to master the medium.
I love it. I've never thought of art in that sense, but hearing you talk about it and explaining it, that especially that part about your life and your art growing at the same time, it's
Yeah, because I
really
think
well.
your inspirations will change and your approach might change as well.
Mhm.
Well, I guess like with me, photography was like, a thing that I was doing as a teenager and then into my 20s. But then I realized, the older I get, the more I kind of think more seriously about life. It kind of
Okay.
didn't really match my way of being in a way.
Mhm.
And there are all these kind of questions that are not obvious. Like I think you kind of sometimes you find yourself doing something instinctively, like starting to paint or whatever you might
Yeah.
be doing,
Mhm.
and you don't even know why. And then the answer might come a bit later on. It's like, well, maybe I did that because I needed to, I don't know, for me, it was like very much like I really wanted to have control over what I'm creating. With
Mhm.
photography, I felt like I was very much limited about what the camera is able to capture. And this is not a dig at photography whatsoever. I love photography. Like I'm
Yeah.
obsessed still. Like I still take pictures, it's like, I'm just talking about your actual medium of choice.
Right.
And so, yeah, well,
Thank you.
that's the point.
Thanks, Yola. So I just have like final few questions, but these are more like flash fire questions that are, if you're listening or watching this from YouTube, you might want to answer this on your own time as well. And say with Yola and see whether you have something it's in common. Okay, first question. Favorite part of the day to paint?
Favorite time of day?
Yeah, time of day to paint.
I think morning, because I'm an early bird.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I love mornings in general, like for everything.
Okay.
I like waking up when it's like, quiet outside. I can have my
Mhm,
coffee in peace.
mhm.
But in general, I think mornings give me quite a big sense of possibility. So
Okay.
I would say morning, which is not
Morning.
realistic because like I don't get to paint every morning, but it's
Okay.
just I would
But it
I would
would
like
be,
to.
if you are to pick a day where you would really paint, it's going to be
Yeah.
morning. Okay. A color in your palette that is always present in your painting, if there's one or two.
Um, oh goodness me. There's definitely going to be a shade of yellow in most things that I do.
Hmm.
Find yellow to be well, it's just a good mixing color, and it ends up running out the quickest out of all of them. So I think I probably use it the most.
Okay.
Um, I
Yellow.
do love like earthy colors as well lately.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know, to be honest. It changes all the time, but I think yellow is probably the one
Yellow is
that's
going to be
always there.
consistent, always there.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are to choose a subject that you are to paint, that you can consistently paint, what would it be?
Some type of a fruit. Um,
Fruit. Please say avocado. Say
maybe
avocado.
I had a phase. I did have a phase of avocado paintings. Like I
So
love
I've
painting
seen it.
avocados.
Yeah.
I've painted avocados quite a lot, so maybe I would move on to something else now. But
Okay.
it could be avocado or maybe a pear. I also love beetroot. Just
Beet.
love painting beetroots,
Okay.
vegetable. But so
Okay.
yeah, it's something to do with food essentially.
Food. Okay.
Yeah,
Amazing. All right. Hey, that's all the questions that I have. Yola, thank you so much for
amazing.
being on the show. It's I had a lot of fun knowing more about you, your journey, and also those I'm gonna use this line again, trinkets of wisdom. I got it from your that line from one of your posts, but
Love it. Love
because I
it.
normally say golden nuggets, but when I saw that, I'm gonna use that on the pod. But you have a lot of trinkets of wisdom that you share with our audience and our listeners. And I know that for anyone who's starting out, just have fun, like what Yola said, and try different mediums and see what works for you. The more importantly is take time to not don't pressure yourself, like what you said, and take the time to
Mm.
really try out different things. And I know that you are teaching. You've taught with us with Etcher, and I believe your mini workshop is still on.
Yes.
So if anyone would want to check that out, I'm gonna link that into the description box. So please do check that out. And Yola Pictures on Instagram is your handle.
Yes,
Okay. So if you want to check out all
it
the
is
amazing
indeed.
tutorials, yeah, of Yola, go ahead and check out her Instagram.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great, and I really actually enjoyed my time with Etcha and the class that I've made. As you said, they are still available online, but also I will actually make a series of new ones in January, at the end of January. So there will be more coming from me and at your platform.
Amazing. I'm
But yeah,
excited
thank
for
you
it.
so much. This has been really fun, and I really appreciate your time. I know it's quite late where you are,
That
so
is okay. That is okay. I had so much fun. I normally schedule interviews during this time so that it's a little bit quiet. But
fair
thank
enough.
you. Yeah,
Fair
thank
enough.
you so much, Hilda. I had so much fun, and you're such an amazing artist. And I look
Thank you. I
forward to
really
that
appreciate your
series
questions as well.
and your series of tutorials and workshops with us. Stay safe, Yola. Thank you so much.
You
Bye.
too. Have a good night.
You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.
Yola is a firm believer that art is a mastery of a medium and growing your life in parallel. Her passion for watercolor is reflected in the vibrant colors of her work. She knows how to have fun, and most importantly, she has a way of sharing that joy with her audience. What's your biggest takeaway from this episode? Do let us know by sharing your comments through the blog post associated with this podcast at etrolab.com/Yola. Want to know what goes behind the scenes here at Etcher? We heard ya. We are lifting the curtain and giving you VIP access to do just that. Get to know who does what here at Etcher Lab. So joining me for the Etcher Team's spotlight is Hazel. She is one of our studio admins. And a side note, when I was introduced to Etcher, she was the one who reached out to me. And I couldn't be more grateful to this girl because if not for her, I wouldn't have known about Etcher. I wouldn't be with Etcher. So thank you, Hazel. And I know how much you love Netflix, but for the benefit of our audience, can you share a little bit more about yourself? And welcome to Make More Art.
Hi, Jessie. I'm so honored to be with you here today. And just wanted to say that I can only take a little bit of the credit because, of course, it's your talent that got you into Etcher in the first place. So, yeah, just a little background about myself. I have absolutely no connection to art whatsoever before joining Etcher. So, yeah, I do sometimes appreciate seeing art, museums, stuff like that. But yeah, this is really something that I never thought that I would find myself in. But I'm so glad that I was able to find Etcher and really open up my world to this whole other world of art and, you know, great people and great artists such as yourself.
Thank you. It's interesting that you said that you weren't really connected or exposed to art prior to joining Etcher, but now you are. So, okay, so being a studio admin, how long? First off, my question is, when did you start working for Etcher? How long have you been with Etcher?
I started working for Etcher back in February. So I'm about to go in my first anniversary with Etcher. So
Wow. So you were also hired during the pandemic.
yeah, I was. I
So,
was
okay. During the pandemic. So, okay. So you started out as a studio admin, or were you placed in a different role? Because like with Gabby, I interviewed her last time and I was surprised that she didn't start as HR. She was doing a lot of things. Did you start as a studio admin or were you hired for something else before?
I was actually hired as a studio admin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's basically what I've been doing for the past year.
The past year. Okay. So tell me, I know there have been a lot of changes with, our processes, studio admin, but you guys have been so good in communicating all of those and making sure that studio hosts, like myself, I used to be, are equipped with it every time that we do our classes. So what is a typical day for you as a studio admin? I'm interested to know.
A typical day for us is basically our days revolve around artists. So from scouting you guys out from Instagram to interviewing you guys and then setting up your courses. So it's really amazing to be able to meet so many amazing people and artists from all over the world, people that I never imagined that I would be meeting. And actually, some of the artists have been sort of friends.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's really amazing that I would get to meet and work with such amazing artists. And ever since I did start working, I did have a much more appreciation for art. Before I would just say, "Oh, that's so pretty," and now I'd be like, "Oh, that's ink and wash." Like I'd have,
Wow. Wow. Okay.
and then like I'd go to like the art stores. Before
Yeah.
I really would just like, yeah, that's just watercolor, but now but now I see, oh, that's Windsor, and oh, that's, I now am more exposed, so I feel like it's a really great world and a great community to be in.
It's amazing to hear. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because most of the people that I interviewed here on the podcast, they would say, at least from the Etcher, right, team, they would say that I started making art when I joined Etcher. Prior, I had no idea. And for you, it's the exposure, meeting different artists. So I was really about to say what is the best part of working for Etcher, but you did mention that. So any major milestone, you're turning 1 year with Etcher. What would be, let's say, your biggest takeaway of working for a company like Etcher?
The great thing about working for Etcher is that um, your communication skills and your people skills really sort of get upgraded because you talk to so many people from different countries, different parts of the world. you get more exposed to different cultures as well. So I think that's something that I really admire about working with etchers, because I was able to be exposed not only to art, but to this whole world of different people from different backgrounds, with different personalities. And I'm so happy that I'm able to sort of upskill myself in that way, to be able to talk to people without, eating my tongue, basically. So yeah.
I remember vividly when you reached out to me and we had a conversation. I think I was still in Singapore at that time. And I was just amazed because you look so young. And then I realized, wow, most of the people from Escher, like, we're from all over the world, but you guys are really good at what you do. Like reaching out to people and making us feel that we are a part of Escher. I mean, when I started as an artist, that's how I felt when I was reached out by you. And that will always be something that I would go back to. And that became possible because someone like you as a studio host reached out to me.
Thank you.
Okay, I know you love Netflix. So I have this question. What are you watching? What are you watching?
I really like documentaries, the
wow.
docu-series on Netflix. I really like crime and like serial killers and stuff like that. So, but I also like, I also like some of the really corny romantic movies as well. Love Hard. Oh my
Love
god.
Hard, I just saw. Love Hard.
Oh my gosh, that was such a great movie. It was so corny and so like, but it was amazing. And that's also something that I really connect with when I talk to artists also. Sometimes we end up talking about like Netflix shows, like, what are you watching right now?
So
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That takes up most of my interview.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you so much, Hazel, for being on Make More Art and for sharing more about yourself and about what you do as a studio admin. Again, thank you again for connecting me with Etcher. I always say that with Anya and with the rest of the guys.
Aww.
It was through you that I got connected with Etcher. So thank you so much. And now it's reverse. I'm the one interviewing you. So thank you so much, Hazel.
Thank you, Jessie. Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
We would love to hear your thoughts, so please drop us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcast, or you can find us on YouTube at Etcher Studio. And hitting the subscribe button is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you again next time. Until then, let's make more art.